Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Max with BuzzTox here, and I am back with the Westworld Season 2, Episode 10 reaction and review. In these videos, I give my immediate reaction after watching the latest episode of Westworld. And I gotta say, I didn't love this episode. Actually, I need to watch it again because I'm thoroughly disappointed. And it's not because I'm upset that the theories I had in place didn't work out. It's because the show didn't capitalize on the plot threads that they put through the season. And this episode ended on a very low note. It was very boring, and it felt like there wasn't any closure, and it reused tropes that they introduced in Season 1. So immediately after watching, I'm left thinking that this episode was kind of a mess. And it really left a sour taste in my mouth after this episode. Every episode leading up to this was fantastic. Even episode 9. It spent so much time developing William's character. We learned that he felt like he didn't belong in the real world. He felt like he belonged in Westworld. There was so much development in his character, and that was thrown in the garbage in this episode. He simply meets up with Dolores. He's a bit of an obstacle for them. And that's it. He gets stopped. And nothing else happens to William. And then in a stupid circle jerk reveal, they tell us that he is a host testing for fidelity. And that totally undermines the character development that they had in store for William in episode 9. And it undermined the story that Ford put William on. Ford told William to find the door, and that didn't lead anywhere. So that's why I kind of feel like now this season wasted my time, because it didn't capitalize on anything that they've developed. It honestly feels like they rewrote episode 10. I know the producers of the show said that they were thinking about changing the story because people were predicting what would happen next. But based on watching this episode, I honestly believe they changed episode 10 just to surprise people. And I gotta say, I was surprised because it has nothing to do, in my opinion, on what they introduced. There were some redeemable qualities. I did like how they had the reveal that the fidelity testing between Dolores and Bernard actually took place in the present, outside of the confines of the park, and Bernard was actually being recreated. It was also an interesting reveal that Dolores was Charlotte Hale throughout the present timeline. But there is pretty much where I draw the line on what was good about this episode. Dolores gets the man in black and takes him with her for really no reason, other than the fact that he's a monster. I thought Clementine coming in and attacking the host, I thought it was filmed really anticlimactically. I felt like there was no tension, and there wasn't really any stakes because the hosts were running to a door that was actually a simulated free world. So Dolores was right, they were running from one jail cell to another, where now these hosts, these characters that we've grown to love, just live in code on a coded world, which is inside the confines of the real world. So it totally destroys hosts being free. I also thought character deaths were handled terribly. They handled Lee Sizemore's send-off like a joke, and I thought it was cheesy. It wasn't emotional at all. They just made a joke out of Lee Sizemore sacrificing himself, and I thought that was a huge disservice to the development of the character. And once again, I need to stress the disservice to characters. They're relying on these stupid tropes that they developed in Season 1 that were effective. The reveal that Bernard was a host was hugely effective, but now they're relying on this crutch over and over again. The reveal that Ashley was a host, I thought was awful. And once again, the fact that William was testing for fidelity. It completely ruins the stakes of this show. They developed William as a strong human character. And they developed the door as something that was true, that I thought had meaning, but it ended up becoming nothing. And then on top of that, when they entered the cradle, I feel like they diminished everything even more, where they simplified humans, saying that they're very easy to understand, which I guess makes sense. We're programmed by nature to survive. But I think it just did that to simplify the storytelling of this episode. And that human nature comes back and back when Bernard is trying to decide what to do. But to be honest, I need to look at this episode again because I am extremely lost. The motives that Dolores had to utilize the weapon, this cradle, this forge, it was this giant thing where we thought that Dolores could learn everything she needed to know about humans. And I guess she did, but it didn't really go anywhere. And we see Dolores changing her mind on what's best for the hosts. So she changes the location of the simulated host location so all these hosts who escaped through the door can be free. And then she brought Bernard back for the sake of him to stop her. I just thought it was awful, and the fact that Teddy was there, the fact that Kawana was there, how does that make any sense? They never traveled there. So I thought the depth of this season could have been so much deeper, but instead it was just everyone fighting to go to a simulated place where there's no stakes and there's no storytelling possibilities anymore, because all these characters who made it through the door are there for good. And all the characters that we did like, they ended up killing off, like Maeve. So in short, I thought this episode was a mess. I don't think this episode connects at all to the previous 9 episodes that they laid in front of us. It seems like it was a separate entity that literally doesn't connect to any previous episode of Westworld at any level. I feel like all the themes that they focused on and introduced were just left behind. And I think character motives jumped back and forth, which didn't really make any sense, and it happened for the sake of plot. So honestly, I'm just left scratching my head. I don't really have anything else to say because I need to watch it again to do an explained video. And I gotta stress again, I don't hate this episode because what I predicted didn't come true. I dislike this episode because as a season finale, it was boring, it was anticlimactic, and in some ways it didn't make any sense because it didn't utilize the plot points they illustrated earlier. I feel like episode 8 that followed Akichita, that was such an excellent episode that developed him as a character, really turned into nothing because Akichita runs into a digital simulated world where he's going to be no use to anybody. And now I feel like episode 9 is a waste because we developed the Man in Black as a very complicated character. But this episode painted him as a one-sided villain, which is so much more than who he actually is. It also makes me question Maeve's storyline, that it was a huge waste of time, because Ford said she was conscious this whole time, which discounts everything about her character. And the whole search for her daughter really ended up nowhere. So just because of this episode, it made me question the way I feel about this entire season. And I think you have to have a really bad finale to make a huge fan like me re-question every episode they've done in the show. Hopefully I can watch it again and come around to it, but right now I am thoroughly disappointed. But please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you agree or disagree with me? Well, that's what's so great is that television and movies are all subjective, so hopefully some of you had some enjoyment from this episode. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.